All right, so today we're diving into something pretty different. Think about it. Graffiti, right? But like online.
Yeah, it's a really interesting development. We were talking about graffiti generators, basically websites and apps and stuff that let you create digital art, with that street art look, but without actually, well, picking up a can of spray paint.
So you get the look without the risk of getting caught by the cops.
Exactly. And you don't need years of practice to make something cool. That's one of the things that really grabbed my attention, the whole anyone can do it aspect.
Yeah, I saw that in the article we're looking at today. It's like they're saying anyone, even if you're a total beginner, you can jump in and start experimenting with these different graffiti styles.
Which honestly is pretty revolutionary when you think about it. It's part of a much larger trend of technology making these, kind of niche, kind of specialized tools accessible to everyone, like democratizing design.
And that's got to be pretty huge for people who maybe like admire graffiti but never consider themselves artists.
Yeah.
Suddenly they can mess around with different fonts, colors, all that jazz,
It's true. The article even talked about how these generators often include different
like
effects.
dripping paint. Oh man, that would be so cool.
Right. They're trying to replicate the actual experience. It's not just about the text itself, it's about getting that authentic look and feel.
Which makes sense because like half the appeal of graffiti, at least to me, is the way it interacts with the environment. The texture of a brick wall, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And a lot of these generators are wise to that. They let you choose different backgrounds, brick walls, subway cars, whatever fits the vibe.
Seriously. That's amazing. It's like they've thought of everything.
They're trying to create a complete experience, which makes sense, right? Because if you're trying to recreate street art, you need that urban context.
Okay, but let's get into the nitty-gritty. You mentioned different styles earlier. Like, what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, there are tons, but some classics are always included. Like, take bubble letters, for example.
Oh yeah, those are cool. Like kind of playful?
Exactly. Very rounded, very approachable. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got wild style.
No, wild style. That's the one with all the crazy interlocking letters, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
super intricate, really tough to master in real life. And what's interesting is that these generators often use algorithms to try and mimic how these styles would be achieved in the real world, with spray paint and everything.
It's like the science behind the art.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about, the line between digital art and traditional art. Like, at what point does using these tools take away from the authenticity of the art form?
That's a really good question. I mean, because with traditional graffiti, there's this whole element of risk, right? It's about making your mark on a public space.
Yeah, and even transgression, like you're breaking the rules, making a statement.
Exactly. It's not just about, pretty pictures. But then again, these digital tools, they can be used for so much more than just replicating street art.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine the possibilities.
The article even mentioned like creating logos, social media graphics, all sorts of stuff.
Exactly. It's about pushing boundaries. And that's what's really fascinating to me. Because now, with these digital tools, you're not limited by the same constraints as you are with traditional graffiti.
So like, does that change how we think about graffiti?
Right. Does it make it more accessible, or does it dilute its message? Is it a new art form entirely, or just a digital extension of something that already existed?
Man, it's a lot to unpack. But this has been a super interesting deep dive. Thanks for, walking us through it all.
Anytime. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a little something to think about. We've talked a lot about how these digital tools are changing things, but what about the message? If graffiti is about making a statement in a public space, what happens when that space becomes virtual? Does the message change? Does it have the same impact? Just something to consider.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks again for joining us.